Joining us now, Oregon Congressman Peter Defazio. Good morning, Congressman.
Morning. How are you?
I am great. I'll see how I am after.
You are great.
I will
You're
see.
Great.
Thank you. I'll see how I am and the country is after the president's speech today. You on Monday on MSNBC said President Obama needs to start acting like a Democrat. I'm sure that's music to the ears of our listeners. Take it from there.
Well, I hope he gets his mojo back, and we see the guy who was the candidate and not the guy who has been governing recently and negotiating by first giving away everything and then asking what else he can give. This is it's got to stop. I'm very hopeful that this Ryan budget will lead him to passion. I mean, Paul Ryan. I mean, first off, the budget is absurd. Slashes the heck out of everything the Republicans hate. All the social programs,
EPA.
Education, EPA. Takes and kills Medicare. Basically, privatizes Medicare. Doesn't even give people a voucher so they can go shopping. It puts people into these dread exchanges. Seniors would be forced to go to exchanges. Oh my God, isn't that socialism? To purchase government-approved health plans. Of course, those government-approved health plans would no longer have limits on pre-existing condition exclusion or age discrimination in pricing. All those things would be repealed. So imagine what a senior with pre-existing conditions, as most have, is going to be able to buy with that fixed contribution from the government in one of these regulated plans. So if President Obama stands up and says, Medicare will not end during his presidency on his watch, and he says that definitively, he'd come a long way back for me.
Congressman, the second this plan was released, I said it was a gift to the president of the Democratic Party. It's only a gift if the president takes it as a Franklin Roosevelt or a Ted Kennedy would take it to lead the charge against the other side. As Chuck Schumer said yesterday, it puts the entire burden of reducing the deficit on senior citizen students in the middle class. It's got corporate subsidies for oil companies, lets the Pentagon go untouched, and gives more tax breaks to millionaires. You look at every poll, you feel the pulse of the American public. It's exactly the opposite of what the middle class in this country want. If a president of the United States on the cusp of re-election bid can't take this and run with it, I don't know where he's at.
Well, it's baseball season, so let's say hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
Instead of run with it. But absolutely. No, I mean, you just hit a number of the high points. The other ironic thing is Paul Ryan's budget, which the Republicans are saying is finally restores fiscal responsibility, wouldn't balance the budget till 2040.
I know.
2040. Whoa, that's a little way off. I think actually we could responsibly balance the budget within a decade with some prudent reductions, particularly ending the war in Afghanistan, getting our troops out of Iraq, removing our Cold War posture from around the world, reducing Pentagon spending, doing away with agriculture subsidies, dropping the stupid idea of sending men to Mars for $1 trillion, having fair rates of taxation on the wealthiest among us and everybody else. The Clinton-era tax rates worked really well for this country when we balanced the budget and had a booming economy. So there's a path, and it's a pretty darn clear path, and one that I think aligns with not only Democratic values, but majority of Americans' values. And the president should be able to divine that and get there in his speech.
I've laid out these numbers before. Go back to the Clinton rates, and you save $1 trillion at least over a decade. You go have corporations pay their share that they're not paying. $1.2 trillion over the decade. Your stock transaction tax, that's another $1 trillion over a decade. Reduce military spending and end this empire, it's another $1 trillion over the decade. That's $4.2 trillion right there. You got a problem with Social Security, raise the cap. I don't think we have a problem with Social Security, but raise the cap. Deficit solved.
Right. You're not breathing hard yet either, are you?
No. That's it.
And we didn't have to eliminate, the student financial aid, Pell Grants, so we didn't have to close down great programs like Youth Build that I was carrying on about last week.
Or billions for rail in this country, high-speed rail.
Right. We could maybe even begin to build out a 21st century infrastructure, but of course that might require revenues. Oh my God, what if we put a tax on the oil companies or a barrel of oil or oil speculators, and we use that to build and rebuild our transportation network and become more energy efficient. Wouldn't that be horrible? No, actually, it'd be pretty darn good and put millions of people to work.
Right. Our guest, Oregon Congressman Peter Defazio, as practical negotiating politics goes, the president's going to give a speech today, and he's going to move closer to the Deficit Commission report, which has some decent things in it. I've said that from the beginning. That's some very decent things in it. It's far, far, far better than the Ryan nonsense. So
they don't pretend you can do this without revenue.
Right, exactly right. And that's my point, is that John Boehner yesterday said any tax increase is a non-starter. Now, for practically speaking, if you put Bill Daley in the room from the White House, and even as conservative as he is, and put Boehner and Reid and maybe the Gang of Six in there, they're going to have some revenue here. They're going to have to say millionaires have to revert to that Clinton rates at least. Or Republicans have to do that. If they don't do that, I just think the Democrats are in a fine position to run against that in 2012.
Yeah, no, they'd just be totally blowing smoke, and the American people get it. I mean, you look at the polling, and people say it should be a balance of revenues and cuts. They know you can't get there by cutting. I mean, if we wanted to balance the budget today, we've talked about this before, eliminate everything that anybody thinks of as government. We close it down, open the doors of prisons, let everybody out, open the borders, no more Coast Guard, no more Centers for Disease, nothing. There's not even anybody left to collect and open the envelopes with the tax returns. That's all gone. And then we get rid of the Pentagon. Guess what? We still have a $300 billion deficit. And you're going to tell me you're going to get there by cutting? Give me a break. Yeah. Cuts are necessary, but there has to be a revenue side. You can't keep decreasing your income and balance the budget, and that's what Paul Ryan proposes.
Right.
Let's decrease income, shift all the costs. The Ryan plan would take – a senior today pays on average 28% of the cost of their medical care with Medicare, and we have about an 11% poverty rate among seniors. Under the Ryan plan, seniors would pay 68% of their health care costs. Now, what senior can afford that? 68% of your health care costs, and we would have a poverty rate among seniors in the 20s, just like we did before Medicare.
Exactly right. And yesterday on this show, I said before Medicare, that age group, seniors, had the highest level of poverty of any age group in the country. People do not remember. And the Republicans, again, I'll say this is a gift to the president, the Ryan plan. It's a gift to Democrats. Let's see what they do with it. Oregon Congressman Peter Defazio with us. War powers amendments. You've been right on this. The executive branch has been grabbing powers not enumerated for them in the Constitution ever since Truman. You've introduced a legislation.
Yeah, back after Nixon invaded bombed Cambodia and some of the things that went on with Vietnam, Congress attempted to enumerate its powers under the Constitution. There were actually two versions of the bill, one which required prior authorization, except when our troops are attacked, our country's attacked, or we're evacuating U.S. citizens. The other allowed the president to engage, but then said he would have to report to Congress. Unfortunately, that other version, that was the Senate version, as usual, bad work by the Senate, prevailed in the conference, and presidents have been using that loophole ever since, and then they don't even say they're complying with war powers, they're just acting consistent with it. I'd close the loophole. I would just obviously restate the powers of Congress under the Constitution and require future presidents, before engaging in military adventures that are not just totally defensive in nature, to get authority from Congress.
Absolutely right. And do you have conservatives who are willing to stand up with you on this?
We do. I'm introducing it with Walter Jones, the Republican who represents one of the big military bases down there in South Carolina.
The former Freedom Fries guy who said he regretted that.
Yeah. So we, and I would expect there should be others. This is both a conservative and a progressive statement. It's about the Constitution, the separation of powers. It's about limiting our military to its real mission, which is defending the United States of America and its critical interests, not being the cops of the world. By
the way, which would save us a lot of money.
Oh, it would save in the order of, a couple of $100 billion a year at least.
Do you think Michelle Bachmann's going to bring Antonin Scalia in to give a little program on the Constitution before she votes on your bill?
Well, maybe we can get Michelle on board here. I mean, after all, she has declared that, transportation projects like the bridge she needs are not earmarks. So, maybe she'll come around on this too.
Well, appreciate you being on the show. You have given me a very short answer now when I go out and speak to Democratic groups, what to do. And I say 435 Peter Defazios in the House, 100 Jeff Merkley's in the Senate, and just sit down. My speech is very quick.
We outlawed cloning, and God, that would be boring.
Oh, I don't think so. Let's do it for 10 years, get the country back on the right track, and then go back to this, system we have. I'm all for that. All right. Thank you, Congressman.
Hey, thank you. Good
morning.
All right.
Peter Defazio with us.